Welcome to this explainer. We throw the word love around constantly, right? I mean, we love our coffee, we love our dogs, and we love God. But what if the actual biblical blueprint for love is way richer and honestly way more demanding than our modern watered-down versions? Well, let's just dive right in and find out.
So let's kick things off with a massive question, one that constantly divides our culture and modern theology. Is biblical love a feeling or is it a choice? Now, if you've spent any time in modern evangelical circles, you have definitely felt this tension. It's kind of the go-to way to push back against a world that says love is just whatever you happen to feel in the moment.
Our culture tells us love is purely a romantic, fleeting feeling. And in response, well, modern theology often swings the exact opposite way, claiming love is just a stoic choice, a pure act of willpower. But here's the thing. Both of these, the feeling definition and the stoic choice definition, are actually biblically inadequate. When we frame the question strictly as feeling versus choice, we're literally importing a philosophy that the Hebrew Bible never even endorses.
Okay, so we absolutely need a new master category here. Instead of this false dichotomy between emotion and willpower, the true biblical category for love is what we call believing loyalty. Think of it as this incredible fusion of deep conviction about exactly who God is, combined with an exclusive allegiance to Him. It basically means you believe God is who He claims to be, and your entire life is completely reoriented in loyalty to that truth. Because, you can't have loyalty without belief. That's just an empty ritual. And you definitely can't have belief without loyalty. I mean, even the demons have that.
To see this in action, we just have to look at the Shema in Deuteronomy. It's that famous command to love the Lord with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mayod. Now, mayod is usually translated as might, but it actually means something closer to veryness or exceedingly. And the requirement here is 100%. The Shema is commanding a totalizing love. It leaves absolutely 0% room for partial loyalty. There are no 68% loyalists in Scripture. God demands the entire shebang.
And that brings us to a massively important concept, hesed. This is an untranslatable Hebrew word that perfectly captures God's covenantal fidelity. It's used over 240 times in the Old Testament to describe God's love. Hesed fuses what our English language typically separates. It's deep, passionate affection intertwined with an unbreakable covenantal obligation. It's a love that operates within a commitment, it sustains across betrayal, and honestly, it is exactly the kind of love God expects from His people in return.
It's super fascinating to see how our English Bibles handle this word. When translators convert hesed into terms like loving kindness or mercy, they completely nail God's affection and grace. But unfortunately, that translation totally hides the genuine reciprocity and mutual covenantal obligation that a partner is required to have. You see, the love God shows His people is the exact same love His people are expected to show in return. It's absolutely a two-way street.
Tracing this history into the New Testament actually busts a major myth. You've probably heard at some point that the New Testament writers essentially invented the Greek word agape to describe a uniquely divine, unconditional love. But history tells a different story. Agape existed in classical Greek as a pretty standard, basic, colorless word. The real magic happened when Hellenistic Jews were translating the Old Testament into Greek, the Septuagint. They deliberately chose agape to translate Hebrew words like hesed. So, by the time the New Testament was being written, the authors were just importing this incredibly rich Old Testament theology that had already been there for centuries.
Because of that history, we have to keep a golden rule in mind. Context determines meaning, not some lexical assumption. Agape isn't some magical silver bullet word that automatically means divine, holy love. Actually, in the New Testament, agape is used to describe the proud, cliquish love of tax collectors and even people who love the darkness rather than the light. So vocabulary doesn't magically create divine love, the covenantal context does.
So if love requires this massive 100% believing loyalty, how on earth do we actually do it? Well, here is the supernatural flow of how this works. Step 1, God's prior love initiates. He absolutely does not wait for us to get our act together or be lovable. Step 2, the Spirit's indwelling empowers us. You literally cannot generate this kind of love by sheer human willpower. It has to be poured into your heart. And finally, step 3, the believer's loyalty response. Love in the Bible is supernatural before it's ever moral. We love because He first loved us.
And hey, let's not ignore the emotional reality of this covenant either. Far from being some cold, stoic choice, God's love is famously jealous and deeply passionate. Just look at the Song of Solomon, with that gorgeous line, "I am my beloved's and my beloved is mine." Emotional and even erotic delight are celebrated as fundamentally good things within a covenant. The Bible completely refuses to let us treat bodily and emotional delight as something suspect or dirty. Within the exclusive boundary of a covenant, those feelings are precisely what God intended.
Now, this covenantal loyalty radically reshapes how we treat the people around us. When Leviticus commands us to love our neighbor, it isn't asking for a fuzzy, warm, sentimental feeling of general goodwill. Not at all. It's demanding concrete, horizontal, covenantal action toward real, living image bearers. In fact, in that very same chapter, it commands honest weights in business, fair treatment of the disabled, and strict protection for the vulnerable. Love isn't just a mood. Love is an action.
The pastoral consequence here is pretty striking when you stack up sentimental love against true covenantal love. Sentimental love essentially demands infinite tolerance and avoiding conflict at all costs. Just sweep it under the rug, right? But covenantal love? That's all about preserving the family, even if it requires incredibly tough confrontation. We see this all over the Old Testament when God actually uses exile to discipline Israel out of love, and in the New Testament with church discipline. Think about it. A family that just turns a blind eye to a member's persistent betrayal isn't showing greater love. They're actually failing to love enough to confront the issue.
Okay, let's shift to one of the absolute most famous passages in all of Scripture. The Apostle Paul gives us this beautiful, exhaustive list in Romans 8 of the external forces that absolutely cannot separate us from God's love. Death, life, angels, principalities, things present, things to come, powers. It is a stunning ironclad guarantee that once you are in this covenant, there is literally no external force that can overpower God's grip on you.
But did you notice the glaring theological omission from Paul's exhaustive list? He never mentions unbelief. And guys, this is completely intentional. The love of God is totally unbreakable from the outside, but it is severable from the inside through active apostasy. That means actively walking away and transferring your loyalty to another God. God's love is absolutely unconditional in the way it initiates, but sustaining that covenant, that asks for our ongoing believing loyalty.
Zooming out for a second, this whole explainer reveals an incredible cosmic love story. Think back to Babel, where humanity rebelled and God disinherited the nations, placing them under lesser gods. But he didn't just abandon them. He immediately kicked off a massive redemptive project, electing Abraham to bring blessing back to the world. That project climaxed at the cross, where God paid the ultimate price. And the whole thing is driving right toward the eschaton, where every tribe and tongue is finally gathered back together.
And that epic story brings us to this incredibly powerful number. One restored family. You see, the cross wasn't just a cold, transactional legal arrangement. No way. It was the absolute ultimate act of hesed. It was literally Yahweh entering his own creation to pay the ransom, specifically to reunite scattered, disinherited image bearers back into one single divine household. The entire endgame of biblical love is about constituting a family.
So, knowing what we know now, that biblical love isn't just a passing feeling, and it's certainly not just a grim, stoic choice, but rather a total, believing loyalty to a covenantal king, we're really left with just one question. Which family do you belong to? Because in the biblical worldview, there's absolutely no neutral ground. You are either bound in believing loyalty to the God of the covenant, or you are serving another. So, whose household do you truly serve? Think on that.